Elara Red Crow had learned the art of invisibility the way other women learned to braid hair or sew seams, out of necessity. The Wyoming plains did not care for softness. The frontier rewarded steel spines, loud voices, quick hands, and she owned none of those anymore. The wind carried secrets heavier than tumbleweed, and if you stood still long enough, you could hear them whisper. She had stood still for years. The river was her confessional. Each morning, before the sun burned gold over the grasslands, she knelt at its edge, washing cloth, washing hurt, washing the memory of hands that had once taken too much and given nothing back. The water was cold, clean, wordless. It judged no one. When the world felt too sharp, she whispered to the current, low enough that even her reflection struggled to hear. "Please don't touch me. I'm already broken." The river carried the sentence away without reply. But the wind, unpredictable, curious, kept it. Jonah Cade did not believe in miracles, salvation, or divine timing. He believed in fences built straight, hands kept busy, and hurts never spoken aloud. He was the kind of man who looked carved by landscape, tall, broad, quiet, made of earth and old storms. His coal-black horse, Reverence, moved with the solemn patience of a creature used to wide land and long silences. Jonah had a face weathered by choices and consequences, a jaw that remembered grief long after his words learned to forget. He rarely entered town, not because he feared it, but because nothing there called his name. Yet that morning something did. A ripple in the distance. A small figure by the riverbank. A woman folded into herself like paper creased too many times, carrying the posture of someone who had once tried to rise and was punished for the attempt. He saw her long before she saw him. Even when still, he carried presence. Even when quiet, he occupied space. She did not turn toward him. People like her stopped turning long ago. Town folk did enough turning for everyone. They called her Bent Feather, a nickname coated in ridicule thin enough to pass as cruelty without consequence. They said tragedy hung around her like an ugly perfume. They said she invited mishap, sorrow, misfortune, whichever fit their appetite that day. Women pulled children by the elbow when she passed. Men studied her with two distinct hungers, curiosity and entitlement. No one ever asked her story. They invented one instead. Jonah had heard it, every deceitful version of it. None matched the shape of the woman at the river, small, quiet, wounded in the way that loud disasters could never fully explain. Pain this particular was intimate, human-made, unforgivable. On his first walk past her, he did not greet her. He did not stare. He gave her the dignity of not being witnessed while wounded. More powerful than attention, he offered the rarest mercy, indifference without contempt. It was the closest thing to safety she had felt in years. At the trading post 2 days later, the world reminded her that safety was provisional. A cluster of men blocked the well, boots scuffed, voices ranging from bored to vicious. One, a lank-armed cattle hand with a mouth full of malice, stepped in front of her simply to prove he could. She made herself smaller, not compliant, tactical. The world misreads survival instincts as submission all too easily. The man grinned down at her like hunger discovering a bruise. "What's the hurry, Bent Feather?" Silence was her shield. Another reached toward her wrist, testing ownership, testing audacity, testing the world to see who would stop him. The world did not move. Jonah did. He stepped close, not fast, not showy, not dramatic. He approached like a shifting of landscape, inevitable and unarguable. He said nothing, did not need to. The men felt him before they saw him, like thunder in distant hills, a warning without theatrics. The hand dropped. The air rearranged itself. Predators were experts at sensing apex silence. No gratitude was exchanged. Elara did not lift her eyes. Jonah did not wait for applause. The moment passed not like a collision, but a rearrangement of gravity. That night, a folded wool blanket appeared outside her shelter. No note, no signature, just warmth left without witness. She stared at it as though it might vanish if blinked at directly. It didn't. The next morning, a peach wrapped in linen waited beside it. Then cedar kindled sticks, dry and split. A bar of pine soap carved faintly with a horseshoe mark. A pattern emerged, quiet as snowfall. Jonah never arrived for acknowledgement. He never lingered for reaction. His offerings carried no expectation, only statement. You exist, you endure, that matters enough. Elara did not know how to hold generosity. At first, she merely observed it like weather. Then, against instinct, she let it live near her without flinching. Warmth like that did not demand. It simply remained. The prairie taught slow lessons. So did wounded people. Their world shrank to gestures rather than speeches. She found a bent shoe nail outside the livery where he worked and straightened it, leaving it atop a fence post. He found it and used it without remark. Once, his horse returned from grazing with a burr caught painfully in its mane. She removed it without ceremony. The next morning, a jar of honey sat outside her door. Gratitude, but never declared. They were two quiet planets, orbiting at a respectful distance, altering each other's tides without naming the phenomenon. But towns rot peace the way rain rots barn wood, slow then suddenly. Deputy Hale rode back into town on a proud, dust-dirty afternoon wearing a badly earned badge and an appetite for humiliation. He was the kind of man who believed authority was less something earned, more something seized from those too weary to fight back. Elara recognized him the way a lamb recognizes a wolf, by scent alone. Their history was not spoken. It didn't need to be. Hale inspected her like land someone else failed to fence in. "You've been wandering too freely," he said one evening near the grain scale, voice low, intimate, proprietary in a way that made the air congeal. She did not reply. Words were hooks. Silence was armor. He tested her boundaries in increments, too small for witnesses to indict, too sharp for her body to forget. A shoulder nudge. A path intentionally blocked. The gentle pressure of power exerted because it could be. The world watched but chose blindness. Easier that way. Jonah watched too. But his silence was storing storm, not surrender. One dusk, with cicadas sawing the quiet apart, Hale cornered her near the feed store. Empty sacks stacked like frail spectators. His fingers wrapped around her upper arm, not violently, but conclusively. Ownership disguised as restraint. The kind of grip with memory in it. Her breath thinned. Habit urged disappearance, but terror pinned her present. She whispered with frayed calm, not to him, but to the air, the earth, the unfairness of being perceived as breakable. "Please. I am already broken." The sentence left her lips fragile enough to fracture in transit. Jonah heard every splinter. Time slowed into something ancient and deliberate. He approached without sprint, without shout. A man who moved like sentencing rather than retaliation. Hale turned, smug, assuming an audience. Jonah did not perform for crowds. He murmured only one thing, voice gravel and winter. "If you touch her again, the ground won't remember your name." Hale laughed, reaching for the badge as though it could sanctify cruelty. Jonah moved first, not with fury, but inevitability. He unspooled the situation with the efficiency of a man dismantling a trap. His hand closed around Hale's wrist. A pivot controlled. A twist. Disarmament without chaos. He pinned Hale against the feed post with minimum violence and maximum certainty. No spectacle. No savagery. Justice without bloodlust. The town drew breath collectively, realizing they were witnessing the birth of consequence. No cheers rose. The scene didn't require them. Jonah leaned in slightly, voice low enough to be mistaken for the wind itself. "You're done here." Hale swallowed bravado whole. Men like him feared myth more than muscle. Silence returned, not hollow now, but rebalanced. Jonah turned, expecting no gratitude, demanding no monument. That was when his eyes met Elara's directly for the first time, not glancing, not coinciding, but looking. What he said was not grand. It was not poetic. It was not persuasion. It was truth spoken gently enough not to bruise. "You're hurt," he said. "Not broken." The words landed like a hand set on steady ground. Something loosened in her chest. Not healed. Simply declared unowned by ruin. Hale left town before dawn, limp intact, ego shattered beyond repair. No one mourned the vacancy his absence left. Elara did not transform overnight. Fairy tales heal in a chapter. Real wounds negotiate terms. But she stood a fraction taller the next day, not from courage, but consequence. The world had shifted by inches, but sometimes inches were revolutions. Jonah did not wait for acknowledgement. He returned to fence posts, hay bales, horses, morning fog. Men like him didn't demand recognition for doing what should have been done long before. Elara continued collecting quiet kindness like smooth stones, small, deliberate, solid. And the plains, great and unmoved by most human ache, allowed one thing to be whispered back at last, softer than wind, truer than judgment. That maybe survival was not the highest honor a woman could earn. Maybe it was being seen, and not shattered by the seeing. She glanced once toward the horizon where Jonah's figure receded, then forward again, toward the day she hadn't yet inhabited but suddenly believed she might. Not free yet, not healed yet, but beginning. And beginnings, after long ruin, were their own form of victory.